Hey, what's happening, everybody? Happy Friday. I hope you all are doing wonderfully well this morning. I just wrapped up a coaching call, business coaching. Actually went to breakfast with somebody, been working with them now for probably 3 or 4 months. And one of the things that came up in the conversation this morning was the idea of dealing with stress. And I thought it was very applicable and appropriate to do a short video about that for those of you who are dealing with stress. Right now is a very stressful, potentially stressful time in our lives. The culture around us, the circumstances around us have created a very toxic environment for stress to thrive. And the way it came to me in the meeting this morning is I like to use this pen as an analogy, okay? So imagine this pen is a balance, okay? On one side, you have stress, and on the other side, you have apathy, okay? And I think what you see in culture right now is circumstances that cause people to ping pong between stress and apathy. Stress and apathy. Stress and apathy. But you and I, human beings, were not created to live in stress or in apathy. Both polar ends of that spectrum are toxic, and they don't allow us to thrive. And so if you're living in stress or you're living in apathy, you are living in a way that robs you from abundance. And we don't even realize we're doing this. We just kind of go through our daily lives. We've got all the things we have to do. We've got to get the kids to school. We've got to go to work. We've got this deadline to meet. We got social media constantly feeding us stuff and news. We've got the mask situation. We've got the vaccine situation. We've got the, political situation. We've got all of this stuff causes us to ping pong from stress to apathy, stress to apathy. And so right now, you see people who are so hyper focused on external issues that they're living in a stressful, toxic state, focused on the issues. But you also have people who are so over it that they fall into apathy, which leads to depression. It leads to just anxiety. And what you're seeing is a world right now being divided by circumstances and by what they see to get them to a place of stress or apathy. But you nor I were created to live in either. And so the first thing you've got to do is you have to recognize you were not created to live polarized between stress and apathy. I was telling this person this morning, I said, if you plant a seed in soil, if the soil is too acidic, the seed will not germinate and grow properly. But if the soil is too basic, if it doesn't have the proper balance of nutrients, it's not going to grow either. Our heart is like a soil. It's like a fertile field that God's purposes grow in. Which is why the Bible says to guard your heart, for from it flow the well springs of life. So when the heart is redeemed, it becomes this spot where God's purposes grow, where His voice comes through, where He calls forth things that aren't as though they were, and we get to co-labor with God and bring forth His purposes into the earth because the heart is in a proper space. The way that Kevin teaches this in our mentoring and our one-to-one is that the heart is kind of the transition point between the mind and the spirit. And so that's why it's so essential for it to be guarded. It's kind of like the soil where the purposes of God begin to grow and where the fuel of purpose begins to be launched forth, okay? So what's happening right now in culture with masks and vaccines and politics and religion and family dynamics and socioeconomic, it's all the enemy's attempt to keep you from living the way you were created to live by getting you to focus on what you see, your external surroundings, so that it keeps your heart polarized between stress and apathy. Right now, so many people are trying to fix the circumstances so that they don't have the difficulties. And what's going on is their heart is living in a constant state of stress because they've taken it upon themselves to be the bearers of justice, to be the ones who are going to fix the situations. And so they're hyper focusing on all of these circumstantial, cultural issues that their heart is in a constant state of stress trying to fix it. But then you have another portion of the population who is seeing all of these things, but it's causing them to live with apathy. They don't care anymore. And it's this depressive state. And it's this, oh, well, I guess this is just the way it's going to be. And oh, the future's no good. And why bother anyway? It's not going to make a difference. And you live in depression and you live in apathy. God does not want you to live in either. When God created you, He created the human condition, the human heart, the human mind in such a dynamic way that He gave you an immune system. He gave your body the ability to rejuvenate itself. He gave you the capacity to think. He gave you the capacity to believe and to participate and co-labor with Him. He gave you your senses to be able to start to create or experience the environment around you, but He gave you the Spirit of God to be able to focus on things beyond the senses. And so when you're not living in a proper state that God created you to live in, your heart becomes void of His purposes and His call. So you have to think of the heart as the place where God begins to sow His purpose into your life, and He begins to birth His purpose through your life. And if that's a toxic thing that's bouncing from stress to apathy, you're never going to be in a healthy place for that to work properly. And that's exactly what's going on in culture right now. And that's why so many people are living in this state of stress and this state of apathy. So the last thing I'll say is this. The solution to this is peace and rest. The solution to this polarization that we see is peace and rest. Now, peace and rest are not the absence of activity or action. Peace and rest are not the absence of circumstances or difficulties. Peace and absence are not peace and rest are not the absence of relationships. Peace and rest in our lives is the absence of stress and apathy. When we live in that state where we're not too focused on stress, we're not too focused on apathy, we're living in a state of rest, a state of peace. It's not about your circumstances. It's not about your mind. It's about the heart. Is the heart in a state of rest and peace? What's amazing about this is no purpose can be birthed from stress or apathy. I would say that no good thing can be birthed. Good fruit cannot come from stress or apathy. But yet we have a culture that lives in constant stress and apathy. Good things, God things, heavenly things, purposeful things, right? World-changing, earth-shattering, shifting things can only be born out of a peace and rest. Why? Because God created the earth from a place of rest. This is the most foundational thing when you look back. God came from rest to create. And then on the seventh day, He rested again. Now what's amazing is that He created Adam on the sixth day. So the first day of Adam's life was a day of rest. One of the key things that, Kevin has taught me that I want to pass on to you guys today is stop living for rest and start living from rest. How do you do that? Stop ping-ponging between stress and apathy. Stop allowing your circumstances to dictate your life. We are spiritual beings. We are not called to live by what we see. God is ahead of us. That means our future is good. God is our rear guard behind us. That means He makes our past purposeful for what He has ahead. Guys, I can't say this video has to be the most important thing for someone to begin to awake to their life's purpose. God is not about the church you go to. It's not about how many Bible verses you know. It's not about your religious obedience. It is about the condition of your heart and who has the guardship over your heart. Is your heart given away to the enemy and the things of the world and the stressors and the circumstances and the difficulties and the stress and apathy? Or is your heart given away to the Father who made you? And is it guarded, right, by the Word, His Word, but also His implanted Word, the Spirit, so that can be the place where He pours Himself into so that He can pour Himself out through you into the world? Y'all, this is earth-shattering, life-changing truth. And right now in culture, it seems as if nobody wants to hear it. We're being told to be compliant. Do this, do this, do this, do this, and then you'll have peace and rest. Stop thinking that getting a vaccine or wearing a mask is going to give you peace and rest. That has nothing to do with your peace and rest. Your peace and rest is not circumstantial based on your health or viruses or governmental influence or how people have treated you. It is, you have the authority by Christ Jesus over your heart to say that I am not going to live by my circumstantial influences. I'm going to live by God pouring Himself into my heart and then me pouring myself out. Now, in that, would He call you to take a certain level of actions? He may. Would He also potentially call you to do things that are contrary or counter to what culture is saying? He absolutely will. There is very few, if any, people in the history of God's story in the Bible who went with the flow and changed culture. You do not go with the flow and follow circumstantial worldly wisdom and change culture. You do that by allowing the Spirit of God to come into your heart and to birth out His direction and purpose through you. So if you're living right now between this ping pong of stress and apathy, you are not living the way that God made you to live. Period. End of story. Doesn't mean there's not difficulties. Doesn't mean you don't have to make difficult decisions. It doesn't mean that just things will magically go away. It means that you have peace and rest in the midst of them because you are not given to the tactics of the enemy to keep you stressed and apathetic. And if you're living like this today, all I can tell you is reach out, get somebody to help you. Get somebody to help you who is not indoctrinated into what they see. Get somebody to help you who is not indoctrinated into worldly culture. Get somebody to help you who is not indoctrinated into religion. Get somebody to help you that is not indoctrinated into political rhetoric. Get somebody to help you that is not indoctrinated into the way we've been called to live. Guys, we joke about the movie The Matrix, but like this is reality. You're not, what you see around you does not dictate. It is what goes on in your heart and what happens in your mind. And so we would love to help anyone who's struggling with this. This is the work we've dedicated our life to, but it takes reprogramming the way you've always done it. The way we've always done it is wrong, friends. Listen, I grew up in the southeastern United States, Bible Belt culture, and the way we did it, it's not going to work moving forward. God is reteaching his people everywhere that you have to live this way, by faith, with peace, with rest, by guarding your heart, by allowing him in, his voice to lead you, and everything else, circumstantial, cultural stuff begins to fall away. This is the only thing that's going to carry us forward. This is the only thing that can bring us freedom. So I encourage you guys in this. Be blessed today. Please reach out if you need anything. Thanks for letting me share this. Much love to y'all. Happy Friday.